Gail, today we get to talk about something super fun and super cool, and that is the beginning. We want to talk about a little bit of why we created Upskill, but it started for each of us way before the actual launching of Upskill, and our why started a lot earlier in our careers. So I'm going to go ahead and start with one career experience, and I know that you've got some that you can talk about too, but I remember the first time I realized that I would do anything like would be able to thrive in business at all. And it was, I started at this job and it was a temp job and I started with a 3-day engagement. And my boss's sixth or eighth assistant for in a year span called in and said she was never coming back uh that week that I started. And they asked if I'd stay and answer phones for a few days. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah, that's fine. I was a temp. My degree was in political science. I'd never been in a business in my life other than a short stint data entry in college for an internship. I had no idea what I was there doing or what other than, sure, I can answer a phone, no problem. Over the next couple of weeks, they asked me to stay a little bit longer, a little bit longer. And I remember 2 months later having this conversation because my boss and I took 2 months to figure out whether I was the right fit for the job to stay and become his assistant. And he looked at me and said, I've had really experienced people working for me. He'd been, he'd actually been the CEO of a publicly traded company. He said, why didn't any of these people work out? He's like, I said, yeah, I'm very young and I'm like, I don't know why. And, and it turned out it was literally because I was so green and so new that I was trainable. I didn't come in with preconceived notions and tell him how he should be an executive and tell him how I make write letters the way they should be written or fall back on all these years of experience. It literally was because I was trainable. Well, that was not something that I learned about in school, any kind of school, college, high school, any conversation with anybody ever. But the fact that I was curious enough to be a novice and didn't really have a vested interest in whether it was done my way or his way when it came to writing a letter or drafting correspondence, what did I care? It actually contributed tremendously to my career. But being trainable is something that we'd like never talk about, like being like completely open canvas and happy to learn whatever isn't something that's like ever talked about. But I know that that is a huge why for me with Upskill is giving people the opportunity to be trainable and to be able to learn if they're willing to and want to.
People going for jobs right now, I mean, one of the big things that companies are looking for now is people that are coachable because otherwise they're just turnover. People don't fit and they're unwilling to change, right?
Right? Because it's
How do
not
you
like
get
you're looking,
anywhere?
you can't look for the magical fit all the time. Somebody can grow into becoming that fit if they're willing to learn and can absorb it like a sponge.
Let's be Taylor Swift. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. Sometimes we are the problem. Sometimes we have to take a look in the mirror and go, huh, I keep having people tell me that XYZ is inappropriate or not cool or you need help with this or you're not doing this correctly. And I keep blowing them off thinking that's not correct. But after so many people say something to you, perhaps maybe it's time to look in the mirror and go, I should correct this. Whether it's a process at work or a personality trait or whatever, got to be trainable.
For sure.
I think that's a lot of what upskill leans into, don't you think?
Oh, so much, so much. But you've had some early career experiences too that really pulled into your why. for founding Upskill?
I was lost. No one helped, no one supported. I remember I just on a whim turned into an insurance agent. So there's that. So there was like literally zero thought went into it. And then I got to my first day at work thinking there was going to be like all this like training and process. And, like you, I didn't really have a whole lot of like office experience. So I had expectations for someone telling me how to do my job. And there was literally zero, like zero. It was like, click here, go there, go there, go there. And I'm like, wait, I don't know what any of that means. Like, I'm brand new to insurance. I don't know insurance terms. I'm brand new to technology. Why am I clicking there? I don't know what networking means. What am I supposed to go do? And I remember one time my boss was like, I was doing home and auto at the time, as well as commercial. And he was like, you need to go get a mortgage broker. And I was like, okay. Well, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know why. Why do I need a mortgage broker? Okay, so I started finding mortgage brokers and just started hanging out with them, and they never sent me any business. Do you want to know why? Because I never asked for it. But I didn't know I was supposed to ask for it. I didn't know anything. So eventually I started selling things. I started leaning into my natural talents, which I realized was something that I was good at. and and eventually I started making a little more money and learning things and figuring it out, and I was like, you know what, when I figure this out, when I'm successful, I'm going to start helping other people who are starting out or who don't get it yet, because those early moments, it's frustrating, and you're angry and lost and sad, and you kind of feel like a piece of crap. At least I did. I felt like kind of like a loser a lot because I was watching people in my networking events doing it, having those relationships, having those sales, getting those COIs and power partners and standing up and presenting and knowing what they were talking about. And I didn't have any of that. And no one told me how to go get it or what I was supposed to be doing to go towards that. I was just like standing there with my hands up going, how do I get there? So once I figured it out, I was like, this is a calling for me to help people.
That's so amazing. It's such an amazing story. And I think that it resonates with so many of us who are sold a little bit of a bill of goods that may not be 100% accurate. Like, go get this certification and you will become this thing. And the reality is that you can take some classes to get that certification and even that licensing. You can be legally licensed to do something and still have no idea how to do it whatsoever.
That was me. I thought once I got my boards and passed all those, the hard part was over. Oh no.
Well, and I was thinking about, some of the hard parts in my career and times where I just needed more information to do what I was supposed to do. And I didn't really have it. And I remember the first time I was called upon to be part of a joint presentation, and there was no preparation and there was no practice. I remember like listening to Eminem on the way to this to work that morning, like, you only got one shot, like like this opportunity comes once in a lifetime. I knew it was a huge opportunity to talk to an accounting firm about our investment fund, but my part of the presentation wasn't something that I was particularly versant in, and I'd never seen anybody present on it. And I didn't know what I was supposed to present until we were literally prior to getting in the car to go there, the entire 10-minute drive with my CEO. And he says, "You're going to be talking about the portfolio. You got this?" And I said, "Yeah." I lied entirely. We got around this giant board table, like this wonderful room. They want to hear all about the investment fund we're raising. And he goes into all the details about the company, which is what I was far more versant in than specific property characteristics, because I didn't work for property management. I worked as the marketing director for the entire firm. He spoke to all of the things that I had any knowledge of. And then I remember saying something to the effect of, and we have 20 some odd properties in 16 states. And and that was it. That was everything I said. And he looked at me and said, "Did you have any more to add to that?" And I said, "No, not really." I literally could only give the statistics around what the portfolio's geographic location and the overarching composition of it, rather than any property specifics related to how we manage those properties, how we were a wonderful operator. I totally bombed it. And I felt so intrinsically that that was like my one shot. And it took years for me to ask for more business development opportunities in the company to continue selling the company because I was so embarrassed with that. I also felt very poorly coached.
Exactly. No one told you that failure is feedback, not failure is the end, right? We think, oh, I failed. I should never try that again. No, no, you just learn what not to do. That's all. Do it again without the part that failed.
Well, and during COVID, I ended up doing Toastmasters for several years so that I wouldn't feel the amount of fear I had when somebody would ask a question, and I would never feel like I had the time to prepare an articulate answer in my head, but I wanted to learn how to do that. And I knew I had to learn. It wasn't just going to be instinctive for me. I'm not good at making crap up. Or if I do, it's made up crap. And people know the difference between made up crap and taking a moment and speaking authoritatively on a topic that you actually have knowledge in. But I was so burned by that first piece that it took me several years to get the gumption to ask for more opportunities to talk about the company in a setting to a bunch of people I didn't know in a formalized structure.
You're so good at it. So good.
I've improved tremendously, but that's also practice.
And now you can stand in a room with venture capitalists and just say, here's a pitch deck that I created for XYZ, and let me tell you all about it.
Instead of working on $20 million funds all the time, we work on $300 million funds. We work with pretty exciting and interesting change makers all over this country in the investment space. And it's not because I am perfect, but it is because I took that failure and learned from it. And those career experiences led me to a mindset that I had to grow, and then taking the actual intentional steps to make sure that I did grow. Anytime I see an area where I think I need to improve, like, okay, I need to actually do better here. I need to actually fix me.
Yeah, it's hard, but isn't it funny? Once you fail forward, failure isn't hard anymore. It sucks. Maybe it's a little embarrassing or it's a little like, oh, I have to start that all over again or whatever it is. But when you just fail, it's just an end. But when you fail forward, you're like, huh, I'll just do it this way next time. It's like not even a big deal anymore. Isn't that cool?
It's so cool. And I think it's the next time you don't limit yourself. It takes out that limiting characteristic of, I'm not good at this, so I can't do it. Because that's what I initially thought is, oh, I can't do that. I, what? I can do anything.
Yes, you can.
Except play professional basketball. I'm 5'1".
Yeah, well, we could go on that tangent, but I agree with you 100%. It's really cool. It's really cool once you discover like, oh, I can do stuff. It was funny when I was taking my boards for my insurance licensing, I was never really that great at school. I did okay. Um, and I was having the hardest time going through the practice tests. I knew the answers and I failed every single time. And then my best friend, who's a doctor, was like, "Oh, girl, I'm coming over. You just don't know how to take a test." Because I was getting like, crying, having pity parties, as we do. And she taught me how to take a test. I went, I passed my boards on my first try. Thank you very, very much. And then all of a sudden, it was like this little tiny crack in the door that was like, things are possible for you. Not only did you pass your boards on your first try, and you're meeting people all the time who say, "Oh, it took me 4 tries," or whatever it is. And you're like, well, not that that makes me smarter, but that sure is quite an accomplishment for someone who thought they were stupid, literally thought I was dumb for a good portion of my life. And then when that happened, I was like, oh, maybe I'm not stupid. Maybe things are possible. And just gradually, things started gradually opening up. And I started getting more and more bold and failing forward. And then finally, it's like, I don't care if I fall flat on my face. I'll just get right back up and do it again.
Because things are possible.
Anything is possible,
Anything is
literally.
possible. It's because anything's possible.
With the
Re
right support.
Support and resources.
Mhm.
Resource it.
Like if you heard my story and that resonated with me, you might be like, that's what I'm going through. What are you teaching? Or, you're like, well, what else is available? I need this, I need that. And then you go to Upskill and you see all these resources. Like, I just need help with goals. So you go use our 55-page goal worksheet. Like, how cool is that thing? I live like the vision list. I'm so obsessed with it. It's so cool. And I love a good visualization. So obviously I enjoy those. But yeah, I mean, we're here for you, right?
And everyone has early career experiences. So whether you're still in there or you're still damaged and a little hurt from your early career experiences, none of us has to stay there.
When you mentioned COVID earlier, and I feel like it was still an early career experience. I'd been in my career a few years and I was not successful at all. I was still trying to figure it out. And we had those like 2 weeks, quote unquote. And I had just been through something where I was like, you know what? I need a minute. I needed a minute. And there was a clear fork in the road for me. I knew what was a fork in the road. And I desperately needed that time to reposition everything in my mind, my heart, my body. It was a really bad time. But I knew that if I sat on my couch and watched Netflix and got drunk with everybody else, I was going to have to literally start my career over again at the end. And I realized that the people that were shutting doors in my face prior to that had zero interest in speaking to me. All of a sudden, those doors started opening because I made the decision to go and figure it out with everybody else. Because at that time, everybody didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah.
And so people started opening their doors to people. I don't know if you had that experience, but I certainly did. It was magical.
Our company doubled during that first year of COVID, and I didn't even know that was possible. But suddenly, people I would have never called me started calling. They
Yep.
needed, and I'd been around long enough. People knew that we would want to help, no matter what it was. We'd want to help, and that openness to being helpful totally changed the trajectory of what we do.
Magical.
And now I talk about it all the time. I'm not embarrassed and scared, and I don't say one line about something and then clam up and look like an idiot in front of everybody.
When I first started and I had to do my like introductions, I had stage fright for all my life. And I would just stand up and be like, I'm Gail, I'm insurance. Like, I don't even know if people heard what I said. It was bright red. I was embarrassed. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, first of all. But second of all, I was so embarrassed that I was going to screw it up and I didn't want to stand up in front of people. I would make an inappropriate joke or say something stupid, or I still have bouts of that I sometimes I'm like, wow, I'm still not completely through that. So it's it's difficult still for me.
Support and resources, girl.
Support and resources. I now learned how to create. I think it's one of our courses, how to introduce yourself, but I have little things that I write down on situations when I know I'm going to be nervous so that I can just reference it right before I stand up and try to remember it all because I'm still sometimes nervous.
But you've made the tools,
Hmm.
which is exactly what we're doing with Upskill, is
Hmm.
providing the tools.
Yep,
Take the pain out of it, have the tools.
as much as possible. And you have someone who's teaching you something that they learned sometimes as a cautionary tale. I say that as me. But you know what? If it helps people, oh, who cares? I leveled up because of my experiences, good and bad, and I'm able to be a resource for people that need me, good and bad. So I'm fine. It doesn't bother me that I had to go through that stuff.
We're failing forward.
Hmm.
We're failing forward.
Yep. Every day.